I'll repeat myself on some things, all right? So in the midst of just this transition, and I'm so excited, there were so many emotions all at once. When we moved in that building, Darren couldn't breathe. And he was moving chairs anyway. He wasn't diagnosed or anything like that. But from the time, of course, the world shut down. You guys remember when we moved out of Don Keithley's church, right at the same time is when they did all the, what do you call it with COVID? Quarantine. So that happened right then, which was such a blessing because we didn't move into the church. So we put everything in storage and we didn't have to pay rent for 3 months. So that was a huge blessing. But the whole time we were in that facility was when the world was shut down. And our lives were being all of our lives were being completely turned upside down. Everything was changed. Anyway, so just even what the whole thing represented. And then in all, it's just a space. It's just a space, but how many of you guys, was anybody here not raised in church? Okay, but you were in it long enough. You guys are all the wild ones. Brad, you guys need to raise your hands and look at your little hippie children right here. There's only 4 of them. There's only 4 of them that didn't have it. And, but there's just such a training in our mind. You guys remember years ago, God told Darren that he's changing the structure. And Darren's like, oh, good, it's not, 3 songs and a message. He goes, no, that's your structure. He said, I'm changing you. You're my structure. And of course, we know that. We are the church. We are God's house. It was never a space. But anyway, this whole time has been just phenomenal, what all is happening at once. So I got a phone call. We had a young man that passed away. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
We had a young man that passed away that was part of God's house in Atoka. I'm just going to go through this really quick. We helped raise him up. He was a leader in our youth camps. He overdosed. We were friends with both. Their family were just intertwined with all the way around. Half of the family had disowned him because his sister's a lesbian and his lifestyle. So there was this big split in the family of the religious structure. And God had shown me 2 weeks before, I'm underneath that building. The building, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's a 7 pillars, big, huge building that we built on Liberty Road, 12 elders. I knew what the building represented was the structure of what we've built. Not Darren and Sheila, the structure of religion, Christian religion. And probably most religions, but putting God on the outside, keeping God to a form that's external, right? So I saw myself underneath that building and I'm cutting the roots. I didn't think it was about that building. That building in my mind represented the structure that's in us, not in those 4 right there. Sorry. We're not going to realize the depth of it until we continually walk this out. And I am telling you, when I put on Facebook about 2 weeks ago that the end is also the beginning, that is where we are. Not with this work, but what's happening in the earth. We've had to release a level of form in order to begin to see with what's going on within us. Does that make sense, you guys? So here I was under that building in this vision, and I'm cutting the strings, the roots, and then the last service we have here, Jared and Nathan come here. I was already having them come, but I wasn't going to have them speak. They were just going to come help us close shop. And I get a phone call to go to that building that we built. Our name's still on it. Honestly, it's still God's house. They're doing business as, which I think is very significant, doing business as the family. And I end up on a Sunday morning where we had church week after week. And I'm dealing with the roots of unforgiveness, separation, and religion. And just releasing love and healing. It was phenomenal, wasn't it, Alex? It was phenomenal. I knew, this is one thing, it took me way too long in my life to get here, is what Darren, I remember Peter said to us when we first moved here, he said, you and Darren hold everything so loosely, like we're not here just to build. And it took us a while to get there. When we lived in that city, the people that we loved, think of your family members, people that you love, we tried to make sure they could see it and carry them and get them to see it and push them, you know what I'm saying? Rather than just release them in the timing of God kind of thing. So when we came here, we realized that God doesn't need our help to build something. We began to learn to just be. We were still coming out of the form, but we were beginning to learn. There's a natural process that begins to happen when you release the form of who you think you need to be for people, and you begin to look within, and you begin to discover the Malkuta, the kingdom, the I can, the empowerment, the government, the everything that you need that's within your own being. When you begin to discover that, you can't be stopped. That's the yeast that keeps on growing. That when Jesus was talking about the yeast, it will not stop. Once you see, you can't unsee. So that doesn't mean you just have a memory. I remember reading about what happened in Azusa Street. If you guys have ever read all these books and stuff, we used to read it to the young people and just like go into intercession. It was so amazing. But the part that made me sad is all these supernatural stories they were looking back at. Yeah. They're in their elderly years and they were looking back at. When something begins to happen or you begin to see what's inside of you or the empowerment that's happening right now, you don't remember back anymore. It's expansion. It's only expansion. And before you know it, no form can hold you. It was never meant to hold you because you love the nature of God. The nature of who you are expands all those forms. So here I was, and I preached at this memorial at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning where we had service week after week, 12 elders, 7 pillars on the front of the church, the whole structure. And I'm preaching on Shavuk, which is the word for forgiveness in Aramaic, which doesn't mean pardon. When it came to the Greek and Latin, they said pardon. Like, you sinned against me, I am the wounded one, I am the judge, I pardon you. That's what they cheapened that word to, okay? But the word shavuk meant to remove the root of your suffering. Yeah. It meant to drop something and never look back. So the key in it, it's not just about forgiveness, the word forgiveness or shavuk, wasn't about releasing someone that did you wrong. It was about releasing that reality altogether. Yeah. So when I say things in church like look at each other with curiosity, and people, you guys remember, some of you guys were there and you're looking right at each other, okay? It's a practice. Because I know Brad, I know things that he's done, good and bad. I know I have memory with Elaine. This is why the whole city couldn't receive Yeshua when he came, because they remembered the natural. Right. They couldn't drop Shavuk and completely live in the present. So then there was only those that could perceive, is not Christ among us? Yeah. And they weren't perceiving from here. Yeah. So this is why the scripture warns you about getting too familiar. We get familiar, and when you're familiar with somebody, you are living from the government of the mind. You're living from a small government. You're living from judgment. You're living from judgment. And I told you guys, some of you guys were there. I remember telling God, I think that people need a license to have children. Because it just, when you see how people treat their children, it just hurt my heart. And I mean, God snapped me out of that really fast. And that's when I did the message on, and you could hear the heartbeat. And he said, with every breath, he said, with every heartbeat, it's a knock. That's the knock at the door. To move into the reality of God. Truth, sharara, means divine reality. That's what truth means. With every breath, it's an opportunity. Who am I? What am I? Every breath is discovery. So here I am preaching on forgiveness, shavuk, which means to remove the root of your suffering. I'm under the structure, removing the roots of suffering. But it wasn't just about those people. There's suffering that we went through when we were in the form. Not just the name of a church, the form that you were in your marriage, the form that you were in what your dad wanted you to be, what your mom wanted you to be. Any form. That's the carpenter's son. That's a form. Okay? So we are releasing the forms as we expand. All the suffering in our life, all of it, you guys, I know it's a big statement, comes from us holding on to a false reality. The reason I'm saying all this is I really have one message. You laughed about it because you're picking up on it. I'm saying it from every angle, and it's the Christ within you, within every cell of your being. We have been trained And Christ is just a word for, it means anointing. Honestly, if you want to go even further back, if you want to be biblical, it was Messiah. No one wants to say that yet. And in every religion, they have a name for it, okay? It's God within you. It's the fact that we were never separate. There is nothing left to even remember. There's a knowing that begins to happen. And the more you allow the expansion, you'll begin to experience God in everything, which is wholeness, which is the expansion, which is in every cell of your being, which is not, there's not a space that I'm sick and I need healing. That's space in between there, right? It's the understanding that I am only whole. And the more I realize I am only whole, the expansion of that wholeness pushes out everything that's out of rhythm. Does that make sense? So the reason I'm saying that is from every angle, and I told somebody today, in all what we look like, what this group looks like, I don't care what form. I know I need help, we need organization. Because this is what happened. I mean, I've lived a while. You guys. All the little home churches. We're against the form, and they build a church at home. What's the difference? All we do as man, ego, natural man, is we keep rebuilding something. It's not that the form is evil. It's not about that, okay? But we, as beings, we transcend all form. Then we can go in and out. Does that make sense? And so, I'm walking really carefully because I don't want to just rebuild something. But really what I'm going to give my life for, and what I will give my life for, and what I am giving my life for, is the message that everything that you need is within you. That they're to come to a space of realization, those of you that are willing, where there's no dependency on the outside. I mean, everything. You guys, the whole reason people were getting all excited about Kirby and immortality, I wasn't attracted about immortality. The dude wasn't eating food for months at a time and doing triathlons or whatever he was doing. We don't even need food. He was in the National Geographic. Is anybody here? So, I mean, we've done 30-day fasts and we've done all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a realization that you're beyond all form. That is what immortality is. It's not holding on to the form. Some of you can live 400 years. God love you. That's happening. That's happening. It's whatever you're here to do. Okay? But it's when I looked at, I didn't know what was going to happen next. Because I knew the mandate, if you want to say it like that, and it's brought me so much growth and so much life. So it's not just a mandate, but I knew 2 years of healing. Of course, we didn't see that Belinda would go, and Caleb, and Smiley, and I mean, it just kept happening. Your dad, it was just crazy. It's been insane, hasn't it? And I know the whole world has been insane. But with it, it's been 2 years of just walking through this. And so then at the end, I'm like, now what? Well, that's when Kirby came. That was, 7 months ago or something? So then it was just like, all right, we're going to finish the building out. But I'm not ready to leave. I'm just saying, God, how does this look? What's next? Okay? So then when we were at the live memorial for Patricia had, those of you guys didn't hear about that. Patricia and Keith, these guys they're in the center of everything we do. They haven't been around a lot because she was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, right? So they did a live memorial. She planned it. It's 21 minutes long. If any of you guys want to see it, she knew what she was doing in the atmosphere. It was freaking amazing. Was it not, you guys? It was the understanding, and she's in it. The first thing she shows is these birds that know how to fly together, and she's just talking about it's our message. It's the message that we carry, that the whole world, like your life is out of sync. Go outside. This is what I told Hunter. Go outside and look. The grass knows how to grow. The trees know how to be healthy. The birds know how to fly. The stars are in place. We're moving perfectly, and mankind's the one that's jacked up. And we're fighting about it. Like, I think that's a deep place for humility for us to come back into the rhythm of all of creation. So the first thing she shows is the birds and how they know. And she just, Patricia, and she's talking. It wasn't about this sorrow thing. It was like we're preparing her for her next life. And then at the end, the woman comes out with these big butterfly wings that light up. Live in a reality that she's going somewhere, and it's not in the by and by in the sky. It's the merging of the realms that Darren talked about. It's the interaction. It's like I told you guys, Christians have been some of the least spiritual people I know. Yeah. It's because we put on all these forms of doctrine and what it has to be. And if we can just help people, I'm telling you guys this because you're my friends, and what we're building as people come in and we just connect them to within their own being and watch the glory. Like I'm missing out when you don't see who you are. I'm missing out on the presence of God, your fingerprint, your stamp that you came to the earth to do. So anyway, so when I looked over at our group, and they're the ones with their lights, and and they had music playing, I'm like, all right, so we're at the beginning. Then I hear God say, a few weeks later, because I've been spending a lot of time with God in this transition, just a lot of time centering, that the stronghold has been built. Well, I know the stronghold is people. Stronghold is a wall around a city that protects a city. It's not about the work, the physical thing we're going to build. It's about the message. It's about understanding that we move to a place of no judgment. We're not here to build something, but connect people with the truth, the sharara, the divine reality within their own being, and just watch out. And just help them connect. This was our big plan. This was our strategy with our children. This is our strategy with everyone that we can influence. So that's what we're building that out. But we are looking at land. Brad and Trista are getting all excited, and they're at a point, and it's all happening at once. Like they drove 7 hours around. I've been looking at land for 2 years, like facilities. Now we're looking at land because we have people that are like, we can build that. And so a space where people can come on weekends to discover. And it's you. It's giving people the space to help them discover. Help them learn how to connect with the Shemaiah, with the essence of God within their own being. That's everywhere. And in this country, probably in most countries, Elba, but for sure Christianity in this country, it is the helping people dissolve the form, because it's not to despise what we came out of, because it's beautiful people and it's our family members. I think it's so amazing that I loved the elders. I loved Darren. I loved the memories. I loved the miracles. I started telling people the miracles that we experienced were phenomenal. I was dropping Dale Allen off at the airport, and I just started kind of finally telling him, because I've never say what we went, God had to stop that when we moved to Houston and told Darren just to teach. He prophesied some. But people only had him in to prophesy. Right, guys? Yeah. 300 people, he would be one of the most accurate prophets I've ever met. And they would he would be like, what's up? And the pastors, the leaders are going to eat. And Darren's still there for 2 more hours, right? People laying all over the place. And I was telling him I had gold seeping out of my eyes for 10 days. I didn't, just gold. My mom, the way we came into the kingdom is my mom's teeth were filled with gold. Pearls, we saw all of it, okay? Hunter, when they prayed for the lady in India that was deaf and dumb, and she got that. I mean, we were in the middle of all of this. God had to step back to lay a foundation and to hit some of our belief systems while we're here. Now there's an addition that's going to happen. It's a coming back. The part that broke my heart in that form was the night before kids would go home from camp, they would be in tears. Because like the Azusa Street book that I'm telling you about, they thought they would have to look back and remember the miracles, and the dependency was on the outside. It was on the laying on of hands. It was on the altar calls. It was on the experience together, get the worship to a point that everyone can experience God. That's not where we are anymore. People are learning how to meditate. People are learning how to center. People are learning that everything I do is worship. You guys remember when Joel Osteen's wife said and everyone got so mad that worship was really about people, the worship service? Well, it is. I just heard this worship leader say, what people don't understand is we plan when to change keys and when to bring emotions in it, and then people are swept away. And I'm like, it's just Go to a Lady Gaga concert. It's the same thing. They just don't have altar calls at the end. They just hug each other and like share their... They do. We told the kids that, like, listen, people don't need you caressing them when they're at the altar. This isn't a Lady Gaga concert. I used to say that. But anyway, so in that model, even though it was so beautiful, the dependency was still on the outside. Now, I'm so honored to be a part of it because I loved the people in it. We wouldn't have known, most of you guys, we wouldn't have known Brad and Trista, we wouldn't have known. So the reason I'm saying that is when you come out of whatever level of form you come out of, it's okay to be mad up front. Okay, you come out of a bad controlling relationship. You start seeing who you are. Maybe your husband, your wife, your parent didn't see who you are. It's okay. Carly needed to get pissed off. Exhibit A, right? To come into it, okay? But if she stayed in that energy, then it's a negative energy. So that a lot of times that's the energy that gets you out of it. I've had enough of the form. I've had enough, right? But then at this point, we move into a place of neutrality in order to see. Or you're just going to build something else. Yeah. And that's all we've done. 44,000 different Christian denominations. Just build something else. And then like, I'm free. I'm sorry that you can't speak in tongues. I can speak in tongues. I'm free. I'm sorry you don't clap your hands in church. Oh, guess what? I'm a Christian and I can drop the F-bomb anytime I want because I'm free. I mean, we just get it's ridiculous. Okay? The freedom isn't anything about any of that. The freedom is about seeing who you are and allowing the expansion. Seeing who we are and allowing the expansion and loving that which once held us. Right? That's when the power comes in. Loving that. Not necessarily the form, but loving the people that are in it. Right? Took a while, huh? It's awesome. But I'm so excited about you guys. And when I'm trying to tell you we're just at the beginning, it's not because I'm going to build something. We're just at the beginning of you seeing. And we're just at the beginning. What are you willing to see?
Everything.
I mean, we're here this time. We might come back to the earth. A lot of people believe all different things. But we're here in time and space to fully discover us. And to fully discover yourself is to fully discover God. That's the opportunity we have. And so when Darren transitioned, I was like, well, what am I here to do? What am I here left to do? I have no desire. I never had a desire. Darren handed me the church one time in Oklahoma, and I am the liquidator. And I shut it down. That's what I did. He's like, babe, you got to take an offering. We got to pay the bills. You got to plug in the sound. I'm like, it's so stupid that we have to have sound and we have to have instruments. You know what I mean? I was like that 15 years ago, y'all, okay? So I had to just reevaluate. I had to look at everything. We will have a plan. We are going to create. When I say to teach people to govern fully from within, that is soul and body as well. Okay? It's time, like right now, not that you know, I am playing catch up. There were things God spoke to me about my health that I didn't do. And I'm in it right now. And that's what you see on me right now. I'm in it. There's things that it's time to get in place in your life, in your health. There's issues in your mind that it's time for you to let go. There's unforgiveness. If there's something that's been like nagging at you to deal with, now is the time. You have the grace on your life to do it because look out. How many of you guys feel like life's moving really fast? You sensing that? Okay. You are ready. You're ready, Nina. You were born for this day. You're ready. But there'll be little things like that'll slow you down if you're tethered, if you're anchored, and you're meant to sail.
At the funeral, I honestly, up until the Cameron's funeral, which was like 2 weekends ago, I thought that I knew what judgment was. I thought that I knew what being present was. I thought that I knew what seeing people who they were in that moment. I thought that I had those things defined and what those things meant to me. And then I went to that funeral and all of that was just blown out of the water. Just like blown up. Just, I can't even put words to all of it.
And the sister's one of her best friends.
Yeah, so his sister is one of my best friends. We grew up together, and when I got there, there's always a little bit of an agitation when I have to go back to Atoka, Oklahoma, because every time I'm like, this is the last time. And so I'm there, and Saturday morning before the funeral, I had a dream, and, sleep-wake encounter, whatever you want to call it. And Cameron, the guy who had passed, was standing there before me. And he said, Alex, you need to forgive people in this town and places, like, areas where things had occurred in this town. I did know that I'm about to see most of those people at the funeral that next day. And so I said, Cameron, I don't know how. And he said, okay, well, I'll help you. So the next however amount of time, it was like a movie scene, and it was like clip after clip after clip, and he would bring people to me, or he would bring me to a space in this town, and it would just release from me. And it was him saying all the words through me, if you can picture that, because I didn't know how to let it go in my own being, in my own space, just because of how deep that hurt went for me. And
can I say something? I want you to get this picture. It's Darren Begley dismantling the rapture, dismantling hell, speaking out of Revelation in the Bible Belt in a small town with the biggest church in town, and this is a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
Okay? They went through hell over it. There you go.
yeah.
Now you remember.
Yes. It really puts your nervous system in kind of stand up, because you never know what kind of confrontation you're going to meet in that town. So he brings me through this, and I felt it when I woke up. This on my chest was just lifted. And I knew that I had forgiven and fully moved into that. And so then I'm just with his sister, and she's just an incredible human. And she got a lot of grief in this town, too, because of her own personal choices and sexuality and who she loved. And she got tons of grief, just from this small space of how people thought life should be, and how you should live, and who you should love, and all these things. And so I'm with her, and we've been through all these different times in our lives together. She was at my own dad's funeral, and I'm just watching her family. Madison was with me, my cousin, and I'm watching her parents in their house, in Keely's house, and there was so much unconditional love that I had never got to fully embody and experience in that way, because of all the judgments that I held and all the unforgiveness that I held. And so all of a sudden, I'm just seeing everybody just love on each other. And I know that it sucks sometimes, it really sucks that it takes something as strong as grief to get us to the point of going, I don't care what you do or what you say. I just want to love you, because we're both hurting because we lost someone that we so deeply cared about. And so it didn't matter what anyone was doing in the room. They're listening to reggae. Some of them were just dancing, just kind of moving. Some were crying. But just how everyone was just loving on each other. And Keely went to Hawaii, which is where my brother lives, the one who had the accident and has the brain trauma. And I haven't seen him since he was removed, because that's how it had happened from my life. And I think I ignored a lot of that situation because it was so painful. And she started to tell me about my brother. And she goes, Alex, he's so spiritual. And let me tell you, my brother was, is this live or anything? No one loved, I loved him because he was my brother and he was my protector, and he always had my back in situations, but he was not always an awesome person to a lot of people, and he hurt a lot of people, and he was hurting in a lot of ways. And what happened when he had the accident, he lost parts of his mind that held the hurt. So now what's left is like this innocent child man who's so full of love and just joy, and every moment is like a new moment because he forgets. And so he'll walk in and he sees something, he's like, whoa, that's awesome. And then 5 minutes later, he comes back and he's like, it's awesome. And then he'll stop and go, I already said that, didn't I? And I'm just laughing and I'm crying, and Keely's telling me all about him, and he wants to watch his dad all the time, and he watches his sermons, and he only listens to K-Love because he only wants to listen to Christian music, and he wants to talk about his sisters. Finally, Keely goes, can we talk about something other than your sisters, please? And she said sometimes he'll be watching Darren and he'll just put his hand on his heart and he'll just start crying and he'll go, Keely, my dad's gone, because he knows. And then sometimes he'll just kind of put his hand on his heart and he'll go, Keely, I'm different than what I used to be. And he'll kind of cry. And then the next moment he just releases it. And she's just telling me this, and it brought me so much joy to hear about him. And she said, Alex, I know that there's been, whatever with his mom, and she said, but it's not worth missing out on who he is. And I said, you're right, it's not. And I said, I'm going to go stay with, he lives with her, and I'm like, I'm going to go stay with her, and I'm going to tell her I don't care. I don't care about any of it. I just want to be a part of my brother's life and your life because you're his mom, and I don't want to have anger or resentment towards anyone. I don't want it anymore. And before I thought I didn't, but I didn't know what it looked like to let it go until it was gone. And so we're talking about my brother, and she's making me laugh because my brother's ridiculous, and everywhere he goes, everyone loves him, and he's like, I'm a beach bum, and he's a goober, but he's so full of joy. And I go, you know what, maybe it takes, for him it took having to literally not remember to be in that space because of how he carried hurt. And I practice, because it is a practice, to be like that every day, to the point that no matter who's in front of me, letting go of every script that I have of that person, everything that I've held them to up until this point, and saying, in this moment right now, I don't know who Brad is because I'm not experiencing him until I'm experiencing him in this moment. And letting go of everything that I thought he was and everything that I thought I was, and fully being who I am right now in this moment, which might be completely a different person than yesterday, and that's okay, because that's what it is to live in the present moment, is to not hold anyone to anything. And that can be so painful because we're like, but what about, these things that were done, or this, and this? But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If you want to live your life without judgment. And so then we're at the funeral home, and there's people coming in, and a specific person who caused a lot of pain in my life, comes in and walks up to me and just goes ahead and gives me a hug. And I said, you know what, if she's able to give me a hug, then I'm able to give her a hug. And she just kind of be in your life because you're, my family. So then at the funeral, Cameron's mom, Kim, asked me to say this, which I really didn't want to be dishonoring because I knew there was a lot of people that knew Cameron more than me. And so I really wasn't sure that I wanted to do that. I'm like, Keely, should you say it? I don't want to overstep anybody's space. And she said, no, I want to hear you say it, man. Someone gets up there and they're talking about addiction because Cameron passed from addiction. And, she gives a whole altar call and talks about hell. And if you have addiction, they try to hijack it. And, very religious person. And Keely wasn't going to talk. And Keely stands up and she gets up there. And, I'm just like, get it, Keely. Like, she goes and puts her hand on her back like, okay, whenever you're done. Takes the mic and says, I don't know a whole lot, but I know what my brother said. And I know what he lived for. And she said, I'm going to say, she said, and all I know is to let that shit go. She drops the mic. She did a mic drop. And her friends we're like, Keely, like, get it, we're just, and then I get up there and I haven't been on that stage on a mic since my own, dad's funeral. And so I'm feeling that own emotion filled with this room of people that most of the people I had to forgive are in the room, and I'm having to tell them about the forgiving. It is done. And I look over and I'm looking in their face. And I knew I had to look in their face. And I said, after I told the dream, I said, all I know is that we're spinning on a rock in the middle of the universe. And we're only here for the purpose of loving without conditions and loving without judgment and loving past behavior and loving past judgment and loving past experiences. And that's all I know. I know that we're here because of love, and that's it. And we're here at this funeral because of love, and that's it. That's the only purpose of all of this crap. And the fact that we've had to build these structures because we're so stubborn, because we just don't want to allow love to flow, and we want it to be the way that we want it to be, instead of just it being like the trees and letting it flow through us. And it takes moments like extreme grief to get a bunch of people on the same page and going, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it changed my life. That funeral changed my life. And Keely changed my life. And Hunter, yeah. I come back and have this experience with my sister and truly got to see it was my purest soul form, looking at her purest soul form saying, I see you. And if we were honest with each other, we would say that's all we really want, is to be seen for our soul of who we are, instead of all the pain and crap we do to each other, especially in family, because we're so close. You get hurt by each other. And we just really, and I said, Hunter, you're such a good soul. And she starts crying and she goes, I am a good soul. Like, yes. But it was the deeper recognition that you are a good soul, and you're a good soul, and you're a good soul. And we're never, and the part that I've always hated about Christianity is teaching people that we were somehow not good, right. Yeah. That some part of us was right. Bad or evil. And that is so wrong, because from the moment that you were birthed, the moments before you were way birthed here, but the moment your soul comes into this physical form, it's been nothing but good. And it's been about nothing other than love and getting to experience that through each other. So I truly now know what judgments are. And I had a lot of them. A lot towards myself. And ultimately, all the judgments I had towards everyone came back to me. And just all the walls I had to build to try to believe that I wasn't worthy of love when I am. But when you're not always taught that, you have to create facades of yourself, because you have to create personas that aren't deserving of love to reiterate the fact that you feel like you're not deserving of love. And it's all crap. So I just wrote this one time with an experience with my dad, and I just wanted to read it. I know that there was some talk about the immortality that he was speaking on, and people kind of, was like, he's speaking on that and then he dies. So I was like, hey man, what's that about? And plot twist. Immortality is the letting go of fear that surrounds the letting go, the surrendering, the acceptance to evolve, to let go. Immortality is not to stay in one form forever. Immortality is not to stay in one form forever, but to evolve from one form into another without resistance. From the form of a baby to an adolescent to adulthood to old age, we continue to transform and evolve. We acknowledge to the 1% of matter over the 99% of the unseen and call it life, but the truth is immortality is not the 1% of matter, but the 99% of the unseen. Then transition from one form into another without resistance, without fear, is what true immortality is. The embrace of each form as it comes with peace and unconditional love for self. The gift that each moment is now in the present moment is immortality. It's not the out from death, but the open arms to the next form. The liberation from physical into spirit is not a curse we have to fear, but a bliss, a gift to return to that which we came. To ourselves on such a profound level our mind cannot comprehend, to fully let go and to fully be free. But until each transition, I live presently and fully in the gift of living right now, physically, in this moment, fearing nothing. embracing everything, loving unconditionally, and being so very thankful. And continuing to live out my script. So. And he's also a very stubborn person. In his physical sense and his health, it took a lot of extreme measures to Darren to finally surrender to what his next form was. And his spirit had already agreed to his script because it was already written. But his physical form was holding on. And I feel like a lot of that was for his family and for the people that he loved. But it was in the moments that he fully surrendered that it's his script, and that transforming and transitioning from one form to another is not death. That's what the word we've had to put on it because we don't understand it. But it's not death. It's just transformation. And it's returning back to what we came from, which is only love and never, ever fear. It's only ever expansion. And the more I've learned that whatever decision or whatever thought I'm thinking or whatever I'm saying out my mouth, if it expands me and it evolves me, then it's love. If I'm withdrawing, if I'm going like this, it's fear. And those are the only two energies there is. Every thought either comes from one space or another. And for me, 90% of my thoughts come from fear. And I call it love. And it has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with unconditional love. It has to do with judgments. It has to do with conditions. It has to do with you treat me this way, then I treat you that way. And that's the part of human nature that we're transforming. And even as there's been fear of what this transformation of this space looks like, what God's house is, what we are what we are to each other and what we've experienced within each other, and getting to see each other's souls and saying, no, we're good souls and we're good people that have got to the space that we deserve love. It's not something to be earned, but it just, you deserve it because you just deserve it, because it's your full essence of who you are. So as we transition, it's not about being afraid of what's next or moving away from one thing to another, but about embracing that whatever is next is going to be beautiful because it's made out of love, because that's the space that we carry here, and honoring, so honoring the space that we left. I'm not mad at religion. I don't have hate for it. I honor what it gave to me, the foundation it created in my life, the context in which it gave me to expand on. And I just release things with honor instead of grief. All constructs, even the church, even my dad, I just honor that. Even the people who hurt me, I honor that, because your honor, it got me to this space where I needed to be. I'm thankful for my judgments, because now I know what it is to live without judgments, and it's much better life. It's so much better. And really getting to look at people, and this takes practice, because it takes me a daily practice. When I came back, I got into a fight with my mom. And I mean, like, bawling fight. And it was something I was holding on to, I was just like, I've been there for all of you guys, and I haven't fallen apart, and I'm falling apart now. And I'm just arguing with her, and I run to the bathroom because I was like, I just can't do this with you. And Hunter's, in the room, and my mom chases me, and she sits in the bathroom, and she's just like, Alex, look at me, like, just talk, she's trying to talk to me. And I asked Hunter later, I was like, what was your perspective? And she said, you were running. She said it was you the whole time. She said, you're the one that was running. And there's this specific show that we watched, me and Hunter, and there's this guy in there, and his name's Mickey, and he, like, really loves his person, and like unconditionally loves this person. Like, this person screws him over, and he just loves him. And Hunter goes, Mom, Sheila's your Mickey. And Melissa comes over, and we're talking about judgments, and we're talking about you become part of the system as soon as you label someone as anything. As anything. I don't care if that person was a rapist. Well, the moment you come in agreement with that, you're part of the system that is creating that. And so she's telling me, and I'm like, yes, Melissa, this is it. If you have just what she was talking about, it was amazing. The things she's getting, and then the way she's teaching her kids this, and her kids fully embodying it. And, there's kids walking with her daughter, and they're like, oh, that guy raped someone. And she goes, I don't care. I'm not going to hold him to that. I'm not going to hold that judgment. And here's a kid learning not to hold judgment to people, learning to release love. And so anyways, I go, Melissa, stop. I got to go release judgment. I take off running, and she's laughing at me because I was like running and leaping. And I just ran in here and like got in my mom's lap, and I just said, I'm sorry for what I'm arguing with is a judgment of what I'm holding you to. And what I'm fighting you with is this judgment of who I think you are, and that's not who you are. And I'm sorry for holding you to that, and I release that because I don't want to hold you to something that's in the past and doesn't exist anyways. And I read this quote one time that says, whether you let it go or not, it's already gone. It's already gone. So let it go, because and so I run in here and I jump on my mom's lap, and I'm like, I'm sorry for holding judgments to you. And I'm like crying. And because when you hold a judgment towards someone, you only can see them through that facade. And you're actually putting that facade on yourself as well. You can only see yourself through that facade. And so you're saying, I'm this, this, and this, and you're none of those things, good or bad. Judgments aren't just bad. It's good things too. Oh, that person is this. That's still judgment, because you're putting a label on it and you're trying to define it. And our essence is so big and so great, we can't be defined by words. It's our smallness that wants to define people and ourselves. It's the part of us that wants to belittle because we're scared of our own greatness. So that's all.
It's a lot. What time is it, y'all?
Taco time.
It is taco time. So a couple things I'm going to tell you, all right? Every movie, everything we've watched up, however, say your age under here, up until this point, has taught you from judgment.
Yeah.
One time, it's going to be a coming off. So we're creating a place within this family to help people come out of that form, off of that tree that's become them. I told you a couple years ago, God told me, quit watching movies about vengeance that call it justice. Because vengeance is not justice. Justice is wholeness for everybody.